All right, welcome back once again to Junk Shop Library's Improv Bible Study. We turn today to the 10th chapter of Exodus. Let's jump right in. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go in unto Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart, and the heart of his servants, that I might show these signs before him. And thou mayest tell in the ears of thy son, and of thy son's son, what things I have wrought in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, that ye may know that I am the Lord. And Moses and Aaron came in unto Pharaoh, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, How long wilt thou refuse to humble thyself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else if thou refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow will I bring the locusts into thy coast. And they shall cover the face of the earth, that one cannot be able to see the earth. And they shall eat the residue of that which is escaped, which remaineth unto you from the hail, and shall eat every tree which groweth for you out of the field. And they shall fill thy houses, and the houses of all thy servants, and the houses of all the Egyptians, which neither thy fathers nor thy fathers' fathers have seen, since the day that they were upon the earth unto this day. And he turned himself and went out from Pharaoh. And Pharaoh's servants said unto him, How long shall this man be a snare unto us? Let the men go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Knowest thou not yet that Egypt is destroyed? And Moses and Aaron were brought again unto Pharaoh, and he said unto them, Go, serve the Lord your God. But who are they that shall go? And Moses said, We will go with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters, with our flocks and with our herds will we go, for we must hold a feast unto the Lord. And he said unto him, Let the Lord be so with you, as I will let you go, and your little ones. Look to it, for evil is before you. Not so, go now ye that are men, and serve the Lord. For that ye did desire, and they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come up upon the land of Egypt, and eat every herb of the land, even all that the hail hath left. And Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt, and the Lord brought an east wind upon the land all that day, and all that night, and when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. And the locust went up over all the land of Egypt, and rested in all the coasts of Egypt. Very grievous were they. Before them there were no such locusts as they, neither after them shall be such. For they covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened, and they did eat every herb of the land, and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. And there remained not any green thing in the trees or in the herbs of the field through all the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste, and he said, I have sinned against the Lord your God, and against you. Now therefore forgive, I pray thee, my sin only this once, and entreat the Lord your God, that he may take away from me this death only. And he went out from Pharaoh, and entreated the Lord. And the Lord turned a mighty strong west wind, which took away the locusts, and cast them into the Red Sea. There remained not one locust in all the coasts of Egypt. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. And Pharaoh called unto Moses, and said, Go ye, serve the Lord. Only let your flocks and your herds be stayed, let your little ones also go with you. And Moses said, Thou must give us also sacrifices and burnt offerings, that we may sacrifice unto the Lord our God. Our cattle also shall go with us. There shall not an hoof be left behind, for thereof must we take to serve the Lord our God. And we know not with what we must serve the Lord until we come thither. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let them go. And Pharaoh said unto him, Get thee from me, take heed to thyself, see my face no more, for in that day thou seest my face, thou shalt die. And Moses said, Thou hast spoken well, I will see thy face again no more. And that is Exodus chapter 10. Locusts. They get a chapter all to themselves. There's a book that I love and have read many times. It's called Insectopia. And the author's name I'm blanking on at the moment. I'll put it in the description at some point. And the book started out as a book about, if memory serves, crickets, particularly the cricket culture in Japan. But he kept finding more and more links to more and more different things. There's a huge pet beetle culture in Japan, apparently. And he ended up with this book, not an insubstantial one. And he arranges it like a dictionary or like an encyclopedia with a chapter for each letter. And some of them you expect, and some of them you don't. C is for Chernobyl, and talks about the massive numbers and amounts and degrees of mutation found in and around, and particularly downwind of the site of the Chernobyl tragedy. All of which is to say, there's a rather lengthy chapter on locusts and all of the different sorts of critters that are referred to as locusts in different parts of the world. And there's this wonderful bit in the locust chapter where he talks about, because it's also sort of partial ethnography. He goes out to far-flung corners of the world and explores their interaction, the interaction of whoever's there with whatever insects are there. Well, he's in this little village, I want to say in Sudan. And the village wakes up one morning, and all of the kids go running out of the house, and then come back just screaming and shrieking, howling. The locusts are coming! The locusts are coming! And he said he had never seen anybody so excited. Everybody comes out to see the locusts. These giant biblical locust swarms only come once or twice a generation these days. And the locusts pile in on whatever vegetable matter they can find, and on roofs and cars and every other thing. And then they eat and they eat and they eat, and then they go to sleep. And in the morning of the next day, before the sun has warmed the locusts up enough to where they can fly, because insects can't fly unless their wings are expanded by heat to a certain point. The entire village goes out with bags and sheets and essentially anything that can be gathered around and tied off, and they harvest all the locusts they can. And then it discusses recipes. And this and some surrounding areas are, locusts have been a staple food for, time out of mind. And in a good year, they end up with so many that they sell them to neighboring countries. And in a bad year, people starve because it's a huge proportion of the protein in their diet. I first read this book probably 10 years or so ago now. And that line, the locusts are coming, I'd only ever heard it in one context, or with one inflection, in fantasy or biblical or medieval settings. It's the locusts are coming and we're all going to starve to death. And then to encounter this one, where it's, the locusts are coming! We will not all starve to death! Was one of the funniest things I've read in years. I'll find the author and put a link to the book in the description. And I highly recommend it. I've read it about 8 times over the last 10 years. It's a hugely enjoyable piece of writing. But that was not the case in Egypt. In Egypt, we got the hopping and swarming and destroying locusts that can bring an entire civilization to its knees virtually overnight. And Pharaoh calls Moses and Aaron in haste. This is the first time he's called them in haste. He says, I have sinned. Take, I pray thee, my sin only this once. Let him take away from me this death only. So Pharaoh repents, and Moses goes out and speaks unto God, and God conjures up a wind that sweeps all the locusts out of the land into the sea, leaving, I suspect, a pretty darn barren Egypt. Because look, at this point, you've had all the animals die, you've had all of the fields beaten down into the dust by the hail, everybody's still got their boils, you've had a plague of frogs and lice and flies, and now locusts. Not much left. And then, having driven the locusts into the sea, the Lord hardens Pharaoh's heart. And he would not let them go. So God turns the lights out. Such a darkness as may even be felt. There's no light whatsoever in all of Egypt, except down in Goshen, where they have lamps inside. And nobody can even leave the house for 3 days, because there is no light. You can't see your hand in front of your face. And after 3 days, Pharaoh calls Moses and says, okay, fine. Go into the wilderness and worship your God. You can take your little ones too. Just leave the livestock behind. Moses says, We have to take all of our livestock with us, because God won't tell us what he wants for dinner until we get to the restaurant. Pharaoh says, that is not going to happen. I know as soon as you get all of your stuffs out of town, you're going to be leaving, and I've got to have something here to bait you back. And the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart again. And Pharaoh said, get out of here and don't come back, because if you come creeping around here again, I'm going to kill you before you have a chance to do any magic stuff. And that's the end of the chapter. And with that one in the bag, you know we've only got one plague left. And it's the super fun one, which we'll hit next time. Throw me a thumbs up if you would. Make sure your notifications are on. Don't forget to poke the Pope. Come back and see us. And that's all I've got.